So very good evening friends. Today we will discuss some important aspects of growth and development. I'm sure you are aware that growth and development are very important topics for the NEET-PG entrance exam from Pediatrics, and especially so because growth and development are two important domains which are exclusive to pediatric population. So many a times the terms growth and development are used interchangeably, but they are not so. They actually represent two different facets of dynamics of change, that is those of quantity and quality. So by growth we basically mean that there is an increase in number of cells, and by development we mean that there is a improvement or there is a change in the maturation of cells. So that is what growth denotes a net increase in size or mass of tissues, and this differentiates a child from an adult. So what are the factors that affect growth? So this is important. You get a number of MCQs on this topic. So in different phases of the life, the factors that determine the growth are different. So in the fetal life, the growth is influenced by insulin and insulin-like growth factors. Whereas in infancy, nutrition plays an extremely important role in determining the growth of the child. And in childhood, the growth hormone insulin-like growth factor and thyroid hormone are the predominant hormones that play a key role. While in puberty, it is the hypothalamo-pituitary and the gonadal axis that plays an important role in the pubertal spurt. So in different phases, there are different factors that affect growth. So there are specific periods in a child's life when the growth is steady and accelerates or deaccelerates. So now this is extremely important for you to remember, that this is the expected daily weight gain that occurs in a child. So in the first 3 months of life, the weight gain is approximately 20 to 30 grams per day. And between 3 to 6 months, the increase in weight is between 15 to 20 grams per day. And for a child whose age is between 6 to 9 months, this will be between 10 to 15 grams per day. And for a child between 9 to 12 months, this is 8 to 12 grams per day. And for a child between 1 to 3 years of age, it is between 6 to 8 grams per day. So now again an important MCQ for you. So consider that considering that the birth weight of an average Indian child is between 2.8 to 2.9 kgs. So let's take a whole number. Let us take this to be around 3 kgs. So now the next 2-3 figures are extremely important. So if the birth weight is around 3 kgs, then at around 5 to 6 months of age, the weight of the child will double. So the weight will become 6 kgs. Then at 1 year of age, this weight will triple. So the approximate weight of a child at 1 year of age is approximately 9 kgs. And then at 2 years of age, the weight will quadruple. That is, it will become 4 times. So the weight will become 3 into 4, that is 12 kgs. So these figures are extremely important. So at birth, 3 kgs. At 6 months, double the weight, that is 6 kgs. Then at 1 year, triple the weight, that is 9 kgs. And then at 2 years, 4 times, that is 12 kgs. So now let's come on to how the length changes or the height changes. So you should know that the length is measured till the time the child is less than 2 years of age or till the time the child is unable to stand. And the term height is used for a child who is more than 2 years of age and who can stand. So height is when the child is able to stand, whereas length is when the child is not able to stand. So therefore, to measure the length, we have an instrument that is known as infantometer. While to measure the height, we have an equipment that is known as stadiometer. Now for your exams, not only that you should know these terms, but you should also know, or you should know how to identify these equipments, because they are an important question for the exam. The figure of a infantometer and that of a stadiometer. Then how does the height change occur? So again, this is important. So at birth, the height is approximately 50 centimeters. Then at 3 months, this length becomes 60 centimeters. Then at 9 months, this length is approximately 70 centimeters. At 1 year of age, the length becomes 75 centimeters. Now, this is another important MCQ. From this table, you get 3 MCQs from this table itself. Otherwise, from this slide, there are 7 MCQs in this single slide. So, length, infantometer, height, what is the age at which height is measured, after which height is measured, instrument used to measure the height, then the length at birth, length at 1 year, or this question can also be framed at what age the length of the child becomes 50%, shows a 50% increase from the birth length. So that is 1 year. So the question itself, the single figure that the height of the child is 75 centimeters at 1 year can be framed in 2 different ways. You can have a direct question asking you the length of a child at 1 year. You can have a question framed as what is the age at which the length of the child becomes 75 centimeters? Or this question can be framed as at what age the length of the child becomes shows an increase in 50% as compared to the birth length. Okay, so the next important milestone with regard to the height or the length is at the age of 4.5 years, when the length becomes 100 centimeters. So this is about length. Now this is one formula that you should remember. This can be used to measure the height of a child and the formula is 6x plus 77, where x is the age. And this is known as Veitch formula. So if the age of the child is, for example, 4 years, so 4 into 6, that is 24 plus 77. So the length will become approximately 101 centimeters. So that is what we had just mentioned in the previous table. 4.5 years, length of 100 centimeters. So this is how the height can be calculated when you know the age. So now let's come on to the important aspects of development. So now let's come on to development. So development basically refers to neurodevelopment, and it refers to functional maturation, acquisition of new skills, and it is progressive. It is orderly and coherent, and it is a continuous process. The speed with which it may occur may differ. Some children may achieve milestones faster, others may attain it at a later age, but the sequence would be the same in all these children. So what are the laws of development? Just like the laws of universe, the development in the child also follows certain laws. And these are important. If you remember these laws, it will be slightly easier for you to remember the pediatric milestones, because they are an extremely volatile topic. But don't worry, if you know the laws, it will be easier for you to remember the milestones as well. So basically, the development is a continuous process from conception to maturity. It occurs in an orderly and predictable fashion, and attainment of new skill builds on achievement of earlier skills. Skills are not missed. Okay, so what does it mean? So basically what happens is, if you read how the grasp develops, so you would see that first there's a palmar grasp. The child uses the whole palm to hold a cube, and gradually as the progression occurs, as there is maturation of the grasp, he comes on to the pincer grasp using just the finger and the thumb. So that is how there is attainment of new skills, and skills are not missed. So you won't see that the pincer grasp appears before the palmar grasp. It does not happen like that. Then another important law is that development follows a cephalocaudal fashion. So the head control will come first, and then will the control of legs or the feet will come. And another important law that development follows in children is that it follows a proximo-distal principle. So if you remember these laws of development, it will be slightly easier for you to remember the milestones as well. So just like I mentioned, you will agree that there is a predictable sequence, but this sequence may vary in each child depending upon the intrinsic and extrinsic factors. Also, development proceeds from general to specific. So how do I explain this? So in general, by this sentence, I mean that, for example, if you show a toy to a child who is 6 months of age, or he will just smile, he will just show his pleasure, he will laugh, he will show squeals of pleasure. But if you show the same toy to a older child, for example, 1.5 years old child, then he will try to reach to the toy to get it. So that is how development proceeds from general to specific. Then also development proceeds from simple to complex tasks. And certain primitive reflexes have to be lost before achieving voluntary functions. So what primitive reflex? For example, I'm sure you would know about the ATNR reflex, that is the asymmetric tonic neck reflex. So the ATNR means that when the head of the child is turned to one side, the hand and the leg on the same side will get extended, and that on the other side will get flexed. So if the child has to turn prone, the ATNR has to disappear, because every time the child will try to turn, the ATNR will prevent it. So for the child to achieve the milestone of turning from prone to supine, the ATNR reflex will have to be lost. So these are the certain primitive reflexes. So the Morrow's reflex. So how is the Morrow's reflex elicited? So for the Morrow's reflex, you take the head of the child, you flex it slightly, and then you make the neck fall suddenly. So as you do this first flexion and this sudden release, you will find that there is first abduction and extension of the arms. And you will also see that the hands are partially open. This is followed by adduction of the arms accompanied by crying and extension of the trunk. So this is the Morrow's reflex, which is a primitive reflex. And there are certain conditions where you will find a asymmetric Morrow's. So what do we mean by asymmetric Morrow's is when this reflex is elicited only on one side. So that is asymmetric Morrow's, and that is seen in Erb's paralysis and in cases of fractured clavicle or humerus. The fractured clavicle or humerus may be seen in children with birth injuries. Similarly, a child with hemiplegia will also have asymmetric Morrow's, with the reflex being inhibited on the side of the hemiplegia. You should know another thing, that this reflex usually disappears by 3 to 4 months of age. So now we come on to the grasp reflex. Now I'm sure you would have seen a number of images of a young neonate holding the parents holding on to the finger of the just born newborn. So that is basically due to the grasp reflex. So it consists of two parts, the grasp reflex and the response to traction. So this is basically elicited by introducing a finger into the palm from the ulnar side, and when the palm is stimulated, the fingers of the child, the fingers flex and they grip the object. Again, just like the Moro's, grasp reflex can also be asymmetrical in children with hemiplegia or with fractured clavicle, and it usually disappears by 2 to 3 months of age. So just like I was mentioning about the asymmetric tonic neck reflex, when in supine position and the child is not crying, the head if turned to one side, the arm is extended on the same side, and this reflex also disappears by 2 to 3 months of age. So now what are the different domains of development where you should be knowing the development? So development is basically studied in 4 different domains. They are gross motor, fine motor, language and social. So by gross motor milestones, we basically mean the attainment of locomotion. So by gross motor, we mean attainment of locomotion. So if you know the laws of development, then you would know that because development goes in a cephalocaudal fashion, so the neck control will be the first milestone. So no problem in remembering this. So because there's a cephalocaudal pattern, so the neck control or the head control will come first, and which is achieved at around 12 weeks of age or 3 months of age. Now what you can do is just remember this. First, try to remember the important milestones that you have to remember for your exam. So because gross motor milestones are basically for attainment of locomotion and the development proceeds in cephalocaudal fashion, so you will first attain the control of the neck, then the control of the trunk, and then the control of the legs. So you will first have head control, then you will have the child turning from prone to supine and then supine to prone. Then the child will sit, first with support, then without support. Then the child will stand. Then only he will show, after the child has learned to stand, only then he will try to show some movement. So to walk, first he will be able to walk, or first he will be able to show his movement or locomotion either as creeping or crawling, and only then he will be able to walk unassisted. So this is the sequence basically in gross motor milestones up till 1 year of age. So in all these milestones, if you remember the sequence on the left hand side, just try to see that most of these milestones are at an interval of 4 weeks, except here where this gap is 6 weeks. Otherwise, it usually shows a gap of 4 weeks. So 18 to 22, 26, then 28, then again 32, 40 weeks, 44 weeks, 52 weeks or 1 year of age. So this is how you have to remember the gross motor milestones. The first milestone to remember is the head control, which comes at around 3 months, that is around 12 weeks of age, and then subsequently at 18 weeks he learns to turn prone to supine, then at 22 weeks from supine to prone, then sitting with support at 26 weeks. Now what do you mean by sitting with support? Does sitting with support mean to make the child sit against a number of pillows? No, that is not sitting with support. Sitting with support means the child using his own hands for support. This is also sometimes known as tripod position. So if the question comes, or if there is a figure of a child sitting with support of his hands, you should know that this milestone is sitting with support, and this is attained at around 26 weeks of age. Sitting without support comes just closer at 28 weeks. Then the child stands holding on to furniture, that is 32 weeks. Then he will crawl. Crawl means on the abdomen, and that is at 40 weeks. And then he will begin to creep. When a child creeps, he keeps his abdomen off the ground, and that is at 44 weeks. And then he walks with one hand held at around 52 weeks, that is at 1 year of age, and by 13 months he will walk independently. So by 13 months, this cephalocaudal progression ensures that the child starts to walk. Then in the second year, now that the child has learned to walk, he will now start doing more complex things. And what are these complex things that you have to remember? For your exam, you have to remember that how he climbs the stairs and what all things he can do for play. So at 2 years, he will start to learn to go up the stairs and down the stairs with 2 feet per step. Then at 3 years of age, he will start going upstairs by 1 feet per step, but because he has to overcome the gravity while coming down, he will still use 2 feet per step while coming down. Another important milestone is riding a tricycle. So at 3 years, he can ride a tricycle. So I don't think it is difficult to remember this. Tri is 3. At 3 years, he is able to ride a tricycle. Now after a year, he will be able to go down the stairs also 1 foot per step. And by the time the child is 5 years, he will start skipping on both the feet. So now next come on the fine motor milestones, which are seen in the first 2 years of life. So in the fine motor milestones, we basically see what the child is able to do with his fingers. The fine motor milestones. So just try to remember the major milestone starts at around 12 weeks, just like the gross motor milestones where the child attains his head control. So by 12 weeks, the child's first grasp reflex is lost. And then 4 weeks later, he tries to reach for objects, but he overshoots them. And by 24 weeks, he will develop a palmar grasp of the cube. And 9 months, he will attain a pincer grasp, which is obtaining a grain or a pellet of paper using the pincer grasp. And by the time the child is 2 years of age, he will be able to turn a knob and unscrew lids of bottles. Then at 2 years of age, he will also be able to put on his shoes, socks and pants. And at 3 years, he will be able to dress and undress fully if helped with buttons. And at 5 years, he will be able to tie his shoelaces. So now basically, though the development is divided into 4 domains, that is gross motor, fine motor, language and social, I have divided these milestones differently because in the exam you are basically asked about these particular things. So you are asked about gross motor, fine motor, what the child does with cubes, how does the writing development occurs. So I have included these separately. So now how the child plays with cubes. So here we come on at 15 months, which is the first major age that you have to remember. So at 15 months, the child makes a tower of 2 cubes. Now at 15, how to remember this? I will just try to make it slightly simple for you. So at 15 months, the child is supposed to receive MR vaccine, which has 2 components, M and R. So at 15 months, he will be able to make a cube of 2 cubes. At 18 months, the child receives DPT plus OPV. So he is receiving 4 vaccines at 18 months. So he makes a tower of 4 cubes. Then at 2 years, he becomes 24 months. That is 2 plus 4. So it is 6. So he can make a tower of 6 cubes at 24 months. While at 3 years of age, he is 36 months of age. So 3 plus 6 is 9. So he makes a tower of 9 cubes. And he will also be able to imitate a bridge. Then at 3.5 years, he will be able to copy a bridge. At 4 years, he will be able to imitate a gate. and at 4.5 years, he will be able to copy a gait. Now, what is the difference between imitating and copying? Imitating is when you just show the child right now. He's playing with cubes, you are there, you make a bridge and show the child, and he tries to make the bridge just like you have shown him. By copying is when you show him an image in a book and you tell him to make just the way it is given in the book. So that is what imitation means, and seeing from a book and then making with cubes is what copying means. So imitating, because you are doing it right now, is less skilled. Copying, he has to think it in his mind that how this will work. It is a more complex milestone, so it comes later than imitating. So now, how does the writing milestones come? So again, just like the cubes, the writing milestones also begin at around 15 months. So 15 months, the child scribbles. Then at 2 years, he will be able to imitate a vertical and a circular stroke. At 3 years, he will be able to copy a circle. Now again, if you see, almost all these milestones are at 1 year of gap. So at 3 years, he begins to copy a circle. Then no corners in the circle. So 4 years, he copies a cross. Then at 4.5 years, he can copy a square. Then at 5 years, he can copy a triangle. And then at 6 years, he will be able to copy a diamond. So that's how the writing milestones go. So these are the important milestones which you should remember from your exam point of view. And just like we have focused on the important questions of the exam. So I hope you would have found this session useful, and for many such useful sessions for your NEET-PG entrance exam, you can enroll for the Unacademy Plus subscription, which gives you unlimited access to live sessions. It gives you access to weekly quizzes which will assess your preparation, and you also get access to mega quiz, which will be a learning exercise for you, and it will help you to know how well your preparation is. You also have access to doubt clearing sessions, and you can interact with your teachers in live sessions as well. Excuse me. So for your journey towards NEET-PG entrance exam, do subscribe to the Unacademy Plus platform for many such interesting and useful sessions. So I wish you to see you in my next class. Good night.